The Nikon Coolpix P1000 boasts of a maddening 125X optical zoom, and the new model even supports RAW and 4K video. Now, all of this in a package that can fit easily in most backpacks makes it a very interesting option for anyone looking for a camera with higher zoom range. Now, we've been playing with this camera for a few days, and it's time to see if the Coolpix P1000 is worth the near 76,000 rupee asking price. The Coolpix P1000 is a chunky camera that's roughly the size of an average full-frame DSLR. It's also quite heavy at 1.4 kilograms, and the design of the lens and placement of some of the buttons require you to use it with two hands at all times. The plastic body feels sturdy and has a subtle texture which offers good grip. The camera is front-heavy due to the 17-element lens array, so it's not the most ergonomic design, but this is something that couldn't really be helped considering the purpose it's trying to achieve. The front of the lens has a ring around it which lets you adjust focus in manual mode, and it can also be used to perform different functions like exposure compensation, ISO, or even white balance depending on what you set it to. The left side of the lens has a button for the snapback zoom and a toggle button for controlling the zoom. Snapback zoom is useful as once you press it, the lens zooms out a little for you to reframe your shot, and once you release it, it restores the last used zoom level. The Coolpix P1000 has a pop-up flash as well as a hot shoe for attaching external ones. The 0.39-inch OLED viewfinder has a resolution of 2.35 million dots and a diopter adjustment. We like the fact that the viewfinder protrudes outwards quite a bit, so when you look through it, your nose doesn't really touch the display easily. All the ports are placed on the left of the camera and are covered by flaps. These include a microphone input, micro HDMI, micro USB, and an accessory terminal. At the back, we have a 3.2-inch display with a 921,000 dot resolution. It can be fully articulated, which is good, but there's no touch support. Now, to get this level of zoom while still keeping the size of the camera relatively portable, Nikon has stuck with the 1x2.3-inch sensor with a 16-megapixel resolution. The camera has a focal range of 4.3mm to 539mm and an aperture range of f2.8 to f8. Now, when you factor in the 5.6 crop factor, this gives you a 35mm equivalent of a 24mm to a 3000mm focal range. The Coolpix P1000 only supports contrast detection autofocus and has an ISO range of 100 to 6400. Other features include lens stabilization, which is combined with electronic stabilization for videos, RAW support, 4K video support at up to 30 FPS, Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. The camera also supports SnapBridge, which lets you connect to an Android or iOS device wirelessly. You can have images automatically transferred to your smartphone as they are clicked or even when the camera is off. Remote photography is also possible as the app lets you control the focus, zoom and other parameters right from the phone. All of this works well just as we've experienced on previous Nikon cameras. The menu system is very simplistic and easy to master even for novice users. The settings are spread across 4 main sections like stills, movie, wireless and miscellaneous setup. One of the settings worth paying attention to is zoom memory, which lets you set various zoom levels for the zoom toggle on the shutter button. Electronic stabilization isn't present at 4K, but it is available for other resolutions. The camera can shoot 1080p video at 60 fps and even 480p video at 120 fps. In our ISO test, we check to see the camera's tolerance to noise as we go up the ISO scale. Now, the Coolpix P1000 doesn't have a very large ISO range, and you can only increase or decrease the ISO by full stops. Noise reduction was kept at the standard level for this test. Now, details are maintained well until about ISO 1600, where at ISO 3200, there's noticeable reduction in details in the effort to suppress noise. At the highest ISO setting, the image is hazy and details look quite mushy. To be honest, we weren't really expecting outstanding performance given the tiny sensor. The main reason anyone would want to buy this camera though is for the zoom, which is simply amazing. It can make objects that are literally kilometers away seem like they are right here in front of you. The contrast detection focus is not bad at a range of up to around 1000mm, however it starts getting slower as you approach the maximum zoom level. At 3000mm, the Coolpix P1000 really struggles to focus at times, so much so that we had to zoom out a bit in order to lock focus. If you're shooting handheld, then make sure you've got a good grip on the camera as the weight shifts forward even more as the lens extends outwards. The Coolpix P1000 is a great tool for capturing distant objects like the moon. In fact, The camera even has a moon shooting mode, which automatically enables a 3-second timer, offers a shortcut to directly jump to a 1000mm zoom level, and you can add various filters to give the sky a different color tone using the command dial. When shooting handheld, the camera's lens stabilization works very well in compensating for the slightest hand movements even at full zoom. There's a bird shooting mode too, which disables the shutter sound so you don't scare away the wildlife. The slow autofocus at high zoom levels really limits the camera's potential for serious wildlife photography though. Image quality is decent under good lighting but is quite mediocre in low light. In landscapes, we notice decent detail and colors. Dynamic range is also pretty good. Macros shot at the widest focal length have good colors and sharpness, but this reduces once you go up the zoom range. The image quality starts degrading slightly once you go above 1000mm, which is noticeable at 100% crop. Colors are still captured well, but the objects lack good definition. They also appear a bit flat since the higher up the zoom range you go, the aperture does get narrower. In low light, details are mushy and the edges around the objects aren't always well defined, even without pushing the ISO to 6400. 4K videos aren't stabilized, so the footage is a bit shaky if you move about, but if you're staying still and shooting footage at high zoom levels, the lens stabilization works well. The picture is sharp and clear at zoom levels up to around 1000mm, after which it starts getting a bit soft. Stabilization works well at 1080p at 30fps, but the footage has a mild shimmer effect when you move about, which is the side effect of electronic stabilization. At 3000mm, the Coolpix P1000 exhibits a lot of focus hunting, due to which we were forced to dial down the zoom a bit. Video quality is decent in low light but gets a bit noisy and soft at high zoom levels. Continuous autofocus isn't very quick as it takes a good number of seconds to lock focus when you change your framing or the focal length. There is a manual video mode, but there's no way to set the focus point like you can for stills, which is a little disappointing. This means you'll have to move your subject or the camera to get what you want in focus. The LCD display produces a decently sharp image, but the brightness isn't very high at the default level, so we had to max it out when shooting in daylight. The eyepiece uses plastic instead of a soft rubber lining like most high-end cameras, which isn't too comfortable for prolonged use. The camera also has a maximum burst rate of around 8fps, but you can also shoot small video clips of either 60fps or 120fps and extract stills from it, although these stills will be at a much lower resolution. Battery life is not great, but we managed to get a little more than the rated 250 shots per charge on average. We also managed to squeeze in a few short 1080p and 4K video clips too, but overall the battery life could have been a lot better. With the bundle wall charger, it takes around 3 hours to fully charge the battery. The Nikon Coolpix P1000 offers the longest zoom range you can hope for from a camera that can fit into a backpack, which is a pretty big accomplishment in itself. Now this does come at a high price of around 75,950 rupees, and honestly at this price we also expect very good image quality, which unfortunately the camera struggles with. It does offer the best zoom range, excellent lens stabilization even at full zoom, a fully articulating LCD display, good grip and decent quality 4K videos. At the same time, the slightly slow autofocus doesn't really inspire confidence, which limits the type of photography you can achieve with this camera. Also, low light performance and battery life could be better, and let's not forget that it is quite a handful to carry around. So thanks for watching our review of the Nikon Coolpix P1000, and for all things tech, log on to gadgets360.com.